two gunshot wounds, one to his right shoulder and one to his right upper thigh. Charles was stable and remained conscious throughout the entire transport, and he remains in stable condition. Our third patient was Terrace Mathis. He was transported in trauma arrest to CCF Mentor Hospital for a gunshot wound to the abdomen. Unfortunately, his wounds were too great and he did not survive. These were the three patients that we had contact with yesterday. I too would like to thank the neighboring fire departments that came to assist us. East Lake Fire, Kirtland Fire, Willoughby Fire, Painesville Township Fire, Willoughby Hills Fire, Concord Fire, and Fairport Harbor Fire. We will now entertain any questions that you may have.
There's been reports that there's possibly being an eviction. Can you comment on that? The whole situation started?
There was an eviction process going on. I can't tell you for sure that that was the reason for the shooting.
Did that eviction process involve the suspected shooter?
That's correct.
Do you know when that was initiated?
I don't know for sure, just earlier this week or last week.
What's the relationship then between the suspect and victims?
They just all lived in the same park.
Sir, we've at least heard on scare and things that there might have been a response to the shooter earlier in the day, possibly. Any knowledge on that?
Yes, we did respond earlier in the day about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was had a complaint of his neighbor having a camera facing his unit. He was upset about that. Our officer responded. We talked with him. He understood that the neighbor could have a camera like that, and that was it. And then we left. And that was early in the morning.
No criminal history?
He's got a real limited criminal history. He had a OVI arrest in 1998, traffic ticket in 04, and nothing else really significant with the Mentor Police Department.
You said you had contact with him around 9 a.m. yesterday, concerns about a neighbor with a camera facing his unit. Was that neighbor one of the victims in the shooting?
Yes.
Which one was it?
Mr. Galizia.
Did the suspect live by himself?
He did. I believe he had a girlfriend that sometimes stayed in his place.
But is it right that this is a 55-plus community? You mentioned he was 47, is that right?
I don't know if they adhere to that or not.
Had he had any, the shooter, had he had any other issues with any neighbors that you've learned of? Or was it just that morning upset about one camera facing his?
Sure. We're still doing an investigation, talking with people, gathering all our facts, and then we can try to determine what exactly may have caused this.
Did officers who encountered him earlier yesterday find anything remarkable about his mental state? Did he appear unstable? Did he appear violent?
No, nothing at all. He just was upset about the camera, explained to him that the camera was able to be there, and he said he understood, and that was it.
And there were no prior problems with him or any neighbors?
No, nothing in our call history that dealt with him in regards to a neighbor dispute.
Did any officer fire any shots?
No officers fired any shots.
What was the nature of the eviction? Why was he being evicted?
I don't know that answer.
What do we know about the weapon that he was using?
He had a few weapons inside the house. On 911 call that you're going to receive, or if you haven't received it already, he came out of his home with 2 handguns. We recovered a .45 caliber handgun and a .38 caliber revolver. Also found inside his home was an AR-15 rifle and a bolt-action rifle and several hundred rounds of assorted ammunition.
As far as you know, he's the owner of all of those?
As far as we know. Any other questions?
In his legal past that would prohibited him from legally possessing a firearm?
Nothing that we see.
I know that obviously he's barricaded last night, and there was some, was there any contact with family? Was family at all involved, his family, in trying to talk to him. I know that, you know, we kind of solved some things. I just didn't know if, you know, if there was any kind of a negotiation going on.
Right. There was no negotiation that took place. By time we had evacuated all the residents and sent the drone in to see his status, we saw that he was on the ground with a gunshot wound, self-inflicted, and there was no need for any of that then.
I may have missed it, but how long did you live there?
I don't know how long he lived there.
Do officers know how long he was dead before you?
You know, the incident started at 4:32, and I believe we made entrance at around, 9 p.m., sometime in between that time. You know, there was a lot of shots that came out, the officers initially, so it could have been at that time. No officers really reported a single gunshot sound after that, so not quite sure when exactly that happened.
Why did it take officers so long to enter? I know you said you sent a drone in, but, I mean, is that 4 hours? You know, about 4 or 5 hours?
The officers went in minutes after the drone had confirmed that he was down on the ground.
So why did it take so long for officers?
We wanted to evacuate the whole park to make it safe for the residents before we did any of our tactical operations.
Are those residents back in the park now?
They are, we released, it opened up at 6:30 this morning, is that correct, Rich, finally? 6:30 this morning, it was completely open.
And the officers that were involved, are they back on duty or ones who were fired at?
The ones that were fired at, they're off next couple days. We'll meet back up with them on Monday and debrief the situation.
Just a scheduled day off, or have they been placed?
Just scheduled day off, correct.
You said call comes in about 4:32, you guys arrive within 2 minutes or so, there's officers start taking fire. When does the shooting kind of end? Is it 4:35, 4:40?
I would say the call came in at 4:32, the officers were there by 4:34. They were being shot at within minutes of arriving and trying to render aid to Miss Cologne, so within the first few minutes.
And then the kind of a burst of shots, and then the shooting ends?
I think there was 2 separate times of shots going on, but in a very short period of time when we first arrived.
Do you know what he was using to fire on officers? Was it the handgun or was it the automatic?
All right, you know, we're not sure right now. He was inside his unit when he fired at the officers, so we're not quite sure yet.
6 to 8 shots in a few minutes, I mean, it'd be hard to do that with a handgun, right? Or-
No, you could shoot that with the semi-automatic handgun.
Does it appear he was inside shooting the whole time, or did he come out and go back in?
No, we believe he was outside and shot all of the victims while he was outside of his home. Went inside, when the officers arrived, that's when he shot from the inside out.
Was that like through a window, or just?
Just right through the side of his home.
No one else in his home at the time. You mentioned that he lived maybe with a girl.
Right, nobody else was inside the home, just him.
Did he have any sort of formal law enforcement, military training that you're waiting?
He's a veteran of the United States Army. I think he was discharged in 2002. 2002.
You know, was that honorable discharge?
No, I don't know anything other than that part.
2002, do you know?
You got another vet
I'm not sure.
in a standoff situation over an eviction.
Any other questions?
You guys haven't really had any
This is
prior
horrible.
other than yesterday.
Correct. Nothing significant, any type of interaction with him that would dictate this type of behavior.
Was the OBI case you guys, or was he living someplace else?
It was here, but it was 1998.
So he's lived in this area for some time.
Yes.
Didn't the other residents indicate they had, problems with this?
Yeah, we're still doing our investigation, speaking with a lot of the residents over there, getting statements. So the more we get into this, the more we'll know how this will all evolve.
Paint the picture of what that area typically looks like, or looked like yesterday around 4:30. Is it a bunch of people were outside, or did something happen that drew these people outside?
Well, the first Laura Cologne being shot drew the other people outside, and they became victims of the suspect. It's a quiet mobile home park, nothing significant. We usually don't have any type of issues over there whatsoever, so just kind of a peaceful park.
So everybody was kind of inside, here's gunshots, come out, and then the people that came out to see what was going on got shot themselves.
I don't know if they were inside, outside at the time of the shooting. I know that they came out at some point. I don't know if they're all walking around or anything like that at the time, if that's what you're asking, but they were outside of their home when they got shot.
Chief, how are your officers doing?
Tough. It's a difficult situation. You're there to provide aid, you're there to stop a threat, and all of a sudden you're receiving fire. So it's a tough situation, but we're trained for it, and we'll speak with our officers and give them whatever support they need.
You guys didn't find any sort of note left behind by the shooter or anything like that?
We're still in the beginning parts of the investigation, so I'm not sure about that right now.
Have family members indicated to you any sort of issues?
Yeah.
Mental health?
Again, we're still at the early parts and gathering statements and trying to piece it all together.
Is his family local?
I believe they are, yes, in Lake County.
Sir, I know how difficult this is on all of you guys. I'm guessing the most difficult part is the conversations that you're having with the victims' families. Just what do you say to them, and what was your message?
Right. I mean, it's a horrible situation. Tough to tell a loved one that their family member has passed, especially due to a violent act like this. It's always difficult, and we try to provide the support, which is why the Lake County crisis team is over there at the community today, and we provide that service to even the family members or anybody that needs that in the county. We're here. We have those resources. Okay. Thank you.
I'm gonna run this back so this way you get the whole thing or whatever. But at the same time, this is crazy with the whole situation. This is the second vet so far that I've heard of this
Them,
year
in some instance, while
where they're serving an eviction and this type of situation unfolds. And I know every situation is different. We really can't have vets getting put out on the streets. There's a lot of things going on that nobody's talking about. But I'm going to start talking about it when it comes to the vets and what goes on for vets, their wives, after the vet passes away. I have some layers I want to peel back, but some things need to get handled first. And but I will be diving deeply into this because I believe that any vet who is tuning into my channel, number one, I want to say thank you. And number two, I believe that if any of you are informed of what actually happens after you pass away and your spouse, if you're married or whatever, there's some things, and it's very important to be discussed, and we're gonna go over. We're definitely gonna have I'm gonna have everything in order. In other words, but I'm going to go ahead and play this back, and you can get the details of what we missed in the beginning. I apologize. It is what it is, man. I jump on when I jump on. I'm me. It is what it is.
being fired upon by the suspect. In total, 4 victims sustained gunshot wounds at the hands of the suspect, 2 of whom were pronounced dead at the scene, a third succumbing to his injuries after being transported to the Mentor Cleveland Clinic Hospital, and a fourth who survived with serious injuries.
The suspect also died at the scene from an apparent self-inflicted wound. In a moment, details of the incident and the victims will be provided by Mentor Police Chief Ken Gunch. But let me begin by saying, Mentor is a close-knit community, and our collective hearts are heavy this day as we process this senseless act. Our condolences and prayers go out to the families of the victims. We are not a city accustomed to this kind of violence, nor is there any history in this very quiet neighborhood that could have anticipated this tragedy. We are aiding the neighbors and friends of the victims who have been impacted by making available the resources of the Lake County Crisis Team, the City of Mentor Victims Advocate, and the American Red Cross. We wish to thank the Red Cross for their assistance last evening in providing aid along with city staff to the neighbors who were evacuated for their safety during the event and after, during which the crime scene was processed. There are multiple law enforcement, fire and EMS, and other agencies to thank for their valuable help last evening and into this morning, which will also be expanded upon by Police Chief Gunch and Mentor Fire Chief Bob Searles. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the courageous actions of our Mentor police officers who gave the victims a chance at survival and avoided additional loss of life, and our firefighter paramedics who also did all they could to help the victims. There will be an opportunity to ask questions shortly, but let me now introduce Mentor Police Chief Ken Gunch to make a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Filipiak. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ken Gunch. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Mentor. Yesterday at 4:32 p.m., the Mentor Communications Center received several 911 calls reporting an active shooter at the Mentor Green Mobile Estate, 7166 Mentor Avenue. Numerous officers responded, and the first officers arrived within 2 minutes of the initial 911 call. The first officer on scene located a female victim in the middle of the street with gunshot injuries. This victim is identified as 63-year-old Laura Colon, who lived at the mobile home park. Second victim with a gunshot injury was immediately located near a residence in the same general area. This victim is identified as 63-year-old Terrence Mathis Sr. While officers were providing aid to Laura Colon, the shooting suspect, identified as 47-year-old Jason Norris, began shooting at officers from inside of his home at number 84. The suspect fired 6 to 8 shots at the officers. The officers were able to locate covering positions while attempting to determine where the shots had come from. They quickly were able to determine the shots came from Norris's home at number 84. At this time, a third victim was located in a residence near the scene with a gunshot wound. This victim is identified as 63-year-old Charles Scala. Officers were able to evacuate him and another resident from the area, where their care was turned over to the Mentor Fire Department. An officer providing aid to Mr. Mathis, combat carried him approximately 60 yards to the end of the street, where his care was turned over to the Mentor Fire Department. A team of officers formed a tactical response team utilizing ballistic shields to remove Laura Colon and turn her care over to the Mentor Fire Department. Members of the Mentor, Lake County, and West End SWAT teams were activated and arrived on scene with three tactical armored vehicles. The teams began evacuating residents from the area. During the evacuation and securing a perimeter, tactical officers located a fourth victim outside of unit number 85. This victim is identified as 82-year-old Thomas Galizia. Mr. Galizia was deceased at the scene. Once the area was secure, a drone was inserted into the suspect's home to locate his position. He was located on the floor with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Tactical officers then made entry and cleared the rest of the home. Ohio BCI was notified and responded to process the crime scene. As a result of the incident, Laura Colon, Terrence Mathis Sr., Thomas Galizia, and the suspect, Jason Norris, are all deceased. Our investigation is continuing to help determine all the circumstances surrounding this horrible incident and hopefully determine the why. I want to commend the officers who responded to this critical incident. All 4 victims were shot prior to the officers' arrival, but their quick response saved lives of other residents. They reacted while being shot at and continued performing their job to protect the lives of the other residents in the mobile home park. It's a blessing none of our officers were shot by this suspect. I want to thank our law enforcement partners that worked together to end this situation. Lake County Sheriff's Office, Willoughby Police, Willoughby Hills Police, Lake County Narcotics Agency, Ohio State Highway Patrol, the FBI, the ATF, U.S. Marshals Service, and probably other agencies that were there that it's just hard to keep track of everyone who was there. Again, we brought the situation to an end and saved lives overall at the end. I'd like to introduce now Mentor Chief Bob Searles for a statement.
Morning. I'm Fire Chief Bob Searles of the Mentor Fire Department. I'd like to start by offering my condolences to the family and the loved ones of the victims. And I would also like to thank the Red Cross and our many neighboring fire departments who came to assist us yesterday. Regretfully, our first patient, Laura Colon, did not survive and was pronounced dead at the scene as a result of multiple gunshot wounds. Our next patient, Charles Scala, was treated and transported to University Hospital in Willoughby with 2 gunshot wounds, one to his right shoulder and one to his right upper thigh. Charles was stable and remained conscious throughout the entire transport, and he remains in stable condition. Our third patient was Terrace Mathis. He was transported in trauma arrest to CCF Mentor Hospital for a gunshot wound to the abdomen. Unfortunately, his wounds were too great and he did not survive. These were the 3 patients that we had contact with yesterday. I too would like to thank the neighboring fire departments that came to assist us. East Lake Fire, Kirtland Fire, Willoughby Fire, Painesville Township Fire, Willoughby Hills Fire, Concord Fire, and Fairport Harbor Fire. We will now entertain any questions that you may have.
There's been reports that there's possibly being some eviction. Can you comment on that? The whole situation started?
There was an eviction process going on. I can't tell you for sure that that was the reason for the shooting.
Did that eviction process involve the suspected shooter?
That's correct.
Do you know when that was initiated?
I don't know for sure, just earlier this week or last week.
What's the relationship then between the suspect and victims?
They just all lived in the same park.
Sir, we've at least heard on scanner and things that there might have been a response to the shooter earlier in the day, possibly. Any knowledge on that?
Yes, we did respond earlier in the day, about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was had a complaint of his neighbor having a camera facing his unit. He was upset about that. Our officer responded. We talked with him. He understood that the neighbor could have a camera like that, and that was it. And then we left, and that was early in the morning.
No criminal history?
All right, I'm just going to leave that there because the thing is, right, is that, all right, so we circle back around, like I said. I'm leaving that there. It's very disturbing looking back on the situation because, even the neighbor apparently, and it's not like you can go back on mine and look at it, but yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap something all up in a ball here because I have a lot of footage of a couple things that need to be out there. Yeah, I'm gonna just stop this here. This is another horrible story about a veteran who apparently was not handling life too well, and life was not handling him well as well. what do you say to this? What do you say to this? There has to be a better way. I just got done saying this in another live. I believe the Veterans Night Live that I did. Not a great show, but I'm doing my best here. That's all I can do. You know, I believe I said something in that show about how just a fraction of the money that we're spending on all this stuff that's going on, right? And these wars that we're fighting, a fraction of the money could stop our veterans from being homeless. It's not an option. Not an option. And I could be completely wrong. Won't be the first time, won't be the last time. I don't care. But for the neighbors to come out and say what they said about he's a crazy man and this and that, you know what? We don't know what that man's seen, been through. We can only speculate. And I'm not going to speculate on this situation any longer. God bless all the best. I'll be back. We're just getting the day started. I expected this update last night, and I should have had my together, but I didn't. So it is what it is. Just going to keep rolling with what we got, and I appreciate anybody and everybody who stopped by. See you on the next one.